Welcome to Conversations. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is Linda Collins, the Assistant Director of the Falmouth Public Library. Linda is working on a project that you may just want to get in on. Thanks for coming to the studio, Linda.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Barbara.
So how is it that you wound up having all these ship's logs, handwritten logs from the 1800s?
So actually we don't have them. This is a joint project with the Historical Society, and the library received a grant to preserve and digitize important records, and we digitized the Falmouth Enterprise and the town records, which are available on the library website. And we also digitized the ship's logs that the Historical Society has. The ship's logs are all handwritten, so they're a little challenging to read, and we thought it would be a wonderful project to transcribe that handwriting so that they will be machine readable. People can word search the logs, and we want to make them available on our website so that researchers all over can have access to them.
This sounds like a wonderful community effort. So the logs themselves are at the Historical Society.
That's right.
And you have them on digital.
Right.
So that you can then pass them on to people who would want to transcribe. Tell us more about what transcribing involves.
Well, we have 48 logbooks, and they are anywhere from 12 pages to 392 pages. It's a total of just under 10,000 pages that we hope to transcribe. And so I've been in conversation with the New Bedford Whaling Museum to make sure that all our efforts are done correctly, so that our end result is useful. And this is going to take a lot of work, and so we're hoping to get a collection of people willing to, people who are interested in sailing, people who are interested in whaling, people who are interested in historical research, to help us with this project.
And there may be people just interested in finding out what might have happened on one of these voyages that no one ever knew about, that's sort of an incident buried in one of these logs.
That's always a possibility.
Right, right. I wonder if our viewers can have a look at what one of these handwritten logs looks like. I think it's one that you have been working with.
Right, and so this log that we took a picture of has one of the whale stamps on it, and when a boat catches a whale, they stamp the logbook. They weren't consistent in this practice, so it's not a guarantee, but a lot of the logbooks have a pattern of stamping for the number of whales they've caught, or they might stamp just a tail if the whale has escaped. Some of the logbooks that we'll be working with also have a lot of hand drawings. Some of the gentlemen had drawn pictures of the sailing ships that they passed by. Another logbook I looked at, he had drawn the outline of different islands that they approached. So they're very, very interesting in many ways.
And most of these ship's logs, they're whaling ships.
They are. The majority of them are whaling ships. And we have two different types of records. We have the official logbook of the journey, and those have a lot of weather and ocean conditions listed in them. And then we have a few journals which tend to be a little more about the sail. The journals are not always written by the captain. One of the ones that I've been working with has been written by the first mate on the ship. So those have a little more human interest to them.
I see.
Although the logs do too.
Yeah, and they have to be there, the official record of the voyage.
Right.
Probably the ship's owner would have wanted to have this record of exactly what happened. I think it's very interesting. Tell us about the personal comments that one writer wrote about his own writing.
So I wanted to read this. Yes, this is interesting. This gentleman was first mate on his ship, and he sailed on several different ships. His name is Henry Gifford, and I haven't researched him thoroughly, but I wonder if he isn't related to the Gifford family.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's an important historical name in Falmouth.
Mm-hmm. So he wrote in his introduction to the reader, "As I am a seaman by profession, there will most probably be some nautical language used, some false grammar, some bad spelling, and in fact, a great many defects will be observed by most any reader who may have chance to obtain possession of this book. To these readers, I would say make no comment. If you have the book, read it and consider it as a favor. Your good opinion would not better it in mine, and your criticism might give me pain." He says, "I write for my own amusement, not for the public." So, Henry, I'm sorry, we're making your book very public.
I'll say.
Yes.
I'll say it will be digitized and there for the world to see.
Right.
If only he knew.
Right.
Right.
And it's interesting that he talks about the spelling and the grammar, because we're doing verbatim transcription. So we want to add all the spelling errors. They're not errors. Some of the spelling was different in those days, but some are errors. We want to add. The book that I'm looking at is very interesting because he uses almost no punctuation and random capitalization. And so we're going to transcribe line by line just as it's written. In the notes that I've written here, I added capitalization and punctuation to help me read it, but it is a bit challenging to read these because you're not clear when one thought has ended and the next one has begun.
So it's going to require some patience on the part of the volunteers.
It is.
Yes. Now, the handwriting will be different. How difficult is that going to be?
It's interesting because when you first start, you think, or when I first started, I thought, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. It's very challenging. But I got to learn as I went along, I learned how he wrote and what his letters looked like. When I first started out, if I came to a word I couldn't make out, I would put it in a space in brackets. And that's the format that we will use. If I made a guess at a word, I'd put the brackets around the word with a question mark after it, indicating that I was guessing it was that word. But as I worked with his handwriting more and more, I got to know it better, and I went back and some of the words were clear to me, and I was quite surprised that I hadn't figured them out the first go-around.
So that the more you work with it, the more familiar it becomes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, you're hoping that viewers, people from in the community will come to the library and volunteer. So how is that? What is the sequence of events?
So the process is this. Right now, we're trying to get the word out that we're looking for volunteers, and we'll need many. The gentleman at the New England Whaling Museum suggested that people work in pairs, in teams, and I think it's important because although we want to preserve the mistakes that the original author has made, we don't want to add any of our own. So we need someone to go through and transcribe, and then their partner to kind of proofread what that person has written. And they might want to swap on and off with the proofreading and the transcribing. I also would like to encourage people to take pleasure in this process and not view it as a job. I'm hoping that several times throughout the year we can have get-togethers where we can share our achievements and our amusements and our frustrations. Some of the logbooks are quite a surprise. There was one, I took some notes. It was a journal written about the bark Alto, and this gentleman was very interested in the political events that were happening at that time and wrote about them in the log. And so I looked to see what political events might be happening, and this log was written from 1857 to 1862, so there were a lot of political events.
Yes, that should be a very interesting log.
I think so, yes. And he also wrote about the crew developing scurvy and people getting killed by the whales they were hunting. So there's a lot in that one. But there's a lot in all of them. Every one I peek at, I think, oh, this looks like a good one.
Yeah. It seems to me that they're going to be like adventure stories.
I think so.
I mean, some of them, I remember looking at one that you had shown me that the writer talks about a lot of boiling, but explain what the boiling is now.
So I'm not an expert in whaling yet. I think we'll all be experts by the end of the project. But apparently each boat has 4 or 5 long boats attached to it, and they drop them in the water and go after the whale, and then they bring him back to the boat and cut him up and boil the oil from the whale.
I see.
And in the bottom of the boat they store the barrels of oil, which is what they bring back.
So there was work. These men really were workers. They had lots of work to do.
Lots of work.
And so it's extraordinary, isn't it, that they were able to do what they do, to catch whales, to cut it up, to and also to withstand the storms and tempests that they must have run into.
And to still have time to write notes about it, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the interesting things about this project is imagining the different uses of this information once we get the transcriptions done. The National the NOAA is interested in historic weather, and there's a project called the Old Weather Project, and they're particularly interested in the ice in the Arctic and the seas, and so they are looking at these whaling ships because they are recording all the weather that happens on a daily basis.
Of course, what data for them.
So it's good data, yeah. So that's when you think of all the uses that might come of our efforts, it makes it more exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, we really don't know what information is in those logs that would be important to a variety of people.
Right.
Right.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about the process so people would know what they're getting into.
Right.
And I want to assure anybody who's interested that if you start out working on it and it just isn't for you, that's fine. All we want is the information you've done so far. Everyone who signs on will get a little thumb drive with a PDF of the log, and they will do the verbatim transcription line by line, and we'll have lots of instruction on how to do it, and save it to the thumb drive. And then when they're done and all the thumb drives return, we can figure out how we need to get them together for the final product.
And that will be working in pairs.
In pairs, yes. So you could find someone that you enjoy working with and sign on. So that will be hopefully in October. We'll have our teams together and we'll distribute the thumb drives. I think it's a very ambitious timeline, but I'd love to think that maybe we can have it done by the following October. I don't know if that's possible, but we'll see how this project goes. We have 48 logs, and perhaps we won't be able to get them all done, but if we can get some completed and then continue the process, or maybe tweak the process to make it a little bit more interesting or easy for people. So that's my goal.
It seems to me that anyone who has any interest in history will really will enjoy this, and also anyone who's interested in adventure stories.
Yes.
The thrill is not knowing what one might find. But I wonder if anyone who is not computer savvy might be a little bit reluctant. How can you get over that? For example, if somebody uses a computer but doesn't necessarily work with thumb drives.
Well, I'd be sure that they paired with someone who had that comfort level. And you'll be working in Word, which most people are familiar with, and just remember to save often. It shouldn't be too technically challenging.
That's not too complicated.
Right, right. You talk about the adventures that were going on, and I want to read one. It's a little bit long, but it's interesting. Our friend, Mr. Gifford, was on a ship called the Marianne, and the Marianne capsized at sea.
My.
And so I'd like to read a bit of that.
Yes, do that.
So it's a bit, it really puts you in the mood, in the scene of what he was experiencing. At 2:15 a.m., took a heavy squall which carried away some of our tracks and sheets, but lasted only a few minutes. Then came a lull, the rain still pouring down incessantly. Not a moment was to be lost. The ship was hauled up, the mainsail reefed up, which was hardly done when the gale came on with tenfold fury, carrying our little bark low into the water. She righted again and seemed to defy the gale to do its worst. It was now 3:15, and we judged it most prudent to call all hands, as the wind had increased for the last half hour to a tremendous gale. While they were turning out, I went up the starboard watch and furled the main topsail. It was now blowing a perfect hurricane. The water began to pour over the sea rails in large quantities when orders were given to cut away the lee boat, but before the order could be executed, she washed away, and immediately after went the stern boat. Each one now got in the weather rigging and prepared for the worst. She now made heavy lurches and began to fill the hatchways. Nearly everything movable had gone from the deck and was washing about in the water to leeward of the ship, presenting a dismal sight. She made a few heavy rolls and fell on her side. So down she went, with them hanging on the rigging. When I called to those in the main chains to come to the aft of the boat, where the water broke less violently over the wreck, I suppose there were 5 or 6 left besides myself. But what was my surprise and joy when they all got aft to find only 2 missing. So I think these sailors were a hardy lot, and when the worst happened, they knew how to protect themselves. And you can see the point where they give up on the ship and realize that they just have to try and save themselves. What happens here is they hang on all night, and in the morning a ship comes upon them. It turns out there's a lot of ships about in the waters, and some of the logs talk about gamming up, where 2 ships will tie together and they'll have a little visit out at sea. We'll learn a lot of nautical terms.
The gam, I think the gam was Falmouth Academy's name for a student newspaper. I don't know if they still use that name.
Yes.
I would think so. But what extraordinarily good writing that is.
Yes.
Was that Mr. Gifford's
yes,
again?
It was.
Well, he needn't have been concerned about his spelling, and it's really quite well written.
It really puts you in the scene. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think that's certainly an inspiration to volunteers to want to read more.
Yes. We would like to have some people with knowledge of sailing. That would be very helpful.
Yes.
Some of the sailing terms. I went to the dictionary a lot. I did Google searches a lot to find out about different words that were reoccurring. And I'll do a lot more of that work so that people will have a little glossary to refer to when they get started. But this is going to be, there's no expert in this. It's going to be a journey that we all take together.
Yes, a learning experience. Now, if somebody wants to volunteer to transcribe some of these logs, or one of these logs, can they start out with something small?
We'll see how it goes. We can divvy them up as people want. If someone takes a larger log but only wants to do part of it,
Right.
that would be fine too. But that we do have some smaller ones. So yes,
Right,
there's no commitment. You know,
Right.
you start out, and if it doesn't work out, that's totally understandable. But I
Well,
think
that's very good, because somebody may be enthusiastic but find either because of their eyesight or something
doesn't
like
work.
that.
or someone might take a small one and say, "Give me more."
Yes, exactly.
People who have done this work talk about getting addicted to it. So I'm hoping we have some of those people in this project.
Yes. I think that you will. And so now somebody who wants to come aboard and do this work should contact you.
Right, and the best way to contact me would be to send me an email. My email address is easy. It's lcollins@falmouthpubliclibrary.org. And that way I'll have a written record, and we won't let anybody slip out of the project by accident. So yeah, send me an email, and hopefully in October, after the summers come to an end, we'll really get started with the project. Yeah.
Why have you wanted to work with the New Bedford Whaling Museum? Is it because they are experts? They know more about what was going on these ships?
They have a collection of logs, and
they
do, and they have been doing some transcribing also.
Oh, I see.
So I wanted to make sure that we were doing it correctly and in a usable format. So
now, once tell our viewers too, let's assume that all of these logs get transcribed, and they are on the website. That now, how will somebody be able to read the transcription, or will they see the handwriting as well?
So we hope to mount both on the website, both the image of the handwritten log and the verbatim transcription. How they will be mounted, I'm not sure. We're going to get some help from the Boston Public Library with that. And we hope to have them added to the Digital Public Library of America, and that will give them broad viewing. Some of the ships we have logs for. The Providence Public Library has logs for the same ship. So to get our information out there is very exciting.
Oh, it is. We can compare what our transcription is with others.
Well, if someone is doing research on a particular ship and they're working with the materials that the Providence Public Library has, they might find that we have a log for the same ship for different years. So it would be very exciting for them to have access to that.
Well, it's the kind of project that has all kinds of possibilities that really scientists who are interested in getting information, others who are perhaps a historian working on a book about whaling. This has all kinds of possibilities. So I would think that viewers would be really interested in joining this project.
I think it's going to be a fun project. The ships that we're looking at sailed all over the world, not just in our local waters, but trips to Hawaii, a lot of trips to the Pacific Ocean, the Galapagos, the Indian Ocean. So these ships were all over. Very few sailed in the Atlantic. So we're not going to be contributing too much to the Arctic ice, historic Arctic ice, because we don't have those. The ships we're looking at, as far as I've seen so far, haven't gone that far north.
And some of these, I love these names of the ships, and you wonder where they come from. The Hobbemark, the Java, the Lady Amherst of London, the Nimrod. Oh, the Nimrod. We have 2 Nimrods.
Yes.
And the Phocion, that sounds Greek somehow. Stephania, the Sarah Herrick, Urania, very interesting. This is an exciting project.
We do have one, the Marcella, that's a merchant ship, so that will be interesting to see how that differs from the whaling ships.
Oh, I see, and interesting to find out where that went.
Right,
right. While we're, while we're here talking about library projects, I must comment on the new website that you've worked very hard, I think, in putting together and improving the website, and it's so much easier. As a patron of the library, I find it just so much easier to use.
I'm happy to get that feedback. We worked very hard. One of the goals of the website was to have it something that we could change more easily. Our old website was very clunky and hard for us to make changes to it. And you want a website to be alive and active place for people to go. So now we can add photographs and new events to it, and it's exciting.
And your project on the ship's logs, all the other things that the library does, it is incredible to me. This is not your grandmother's library. No. This is really cutting-edge stuff, and I would imagine we just are very fortunate in Falmouth to have the Falmouth Public Library doing all these exciting things.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for being with us and telling us about this project, and I hope that viewers who are interested in signing up to transcribe some of these ship's logs will get in touch with Linda Collins. Thank you again.
Thank you, Barbara. This was great.
Right.